Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of Cablevision's #1 talk show, Rook's Castle Roundtable Report, the cable television show that showcases and highlights local and national news, sports, and entertainment issues, topics, and events. Thank you for tuning in. This is part 67. That's right, just like the 67 riots. This is part 67 of Rook's Castle. I'm your host and producer, Rookie Johnston, and as we usually do at the beginning of every show, I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time out. You could be doing a million other things, but you chose to turn to Channel 19 and watch our show, so I want to thank you for doing that. But tonight, special edition, no music tonight, just talk. I'm honored to have my parents on the show tonight. Yesterday was actually their 51st anniversary, so tonight I'm going to dedicate this show to them. This is part 1. I got a feeling we're going to go over a little bit, so if not, you'll catch the second part next week. But we're just going to talk about a lot of things. You hear me talking about them on the show like maybe 4 or 5 times. Actually, I've had them both on the show at different times, and you said, well, you had your dad on, when you going to bring your mom on? You had your mom on, when you going to bring your dad on? So tonight, I got both of them to come here, and actually this is like an anniversary show. I'm dedicating this show to them tonight. So I'm going to be talking to them for the next hour. Do as we usually do. Information to be real tight tonight because you'll get a different perspective. We're going to talk about Newark tonight. We're going to talk about a lot of other things. And at the end of the show, we may touch on a couple of news topics. But I want to get, it's a lot of information that you've asked me about them, or you've asked them about something about the show. So tonight, you're going to get everything. This is a special edition, part 67. And I'm going to start by thanking my dad because we started this out maybe like 3 or 4 years ago with part 1. And we're on 67 now, so we didn't think, we didn't have the foresight. We were hoping, but we never thought we'd be doing 67. We're almost on 70 shows. So when we get to 100, we'll let you know. But that's the intro. But I'm gonna start talking to them, and it's gonna be good tonight. I really feel good about this. I'm excited. I've been waiting to do this for a while. I finally got them both on the show, and as I said, there's gonna probably be part 1 this week, part 2 next week. So without further notice, I'm gonna introduce my mom and dad. You hear them on every show, me talking about them. They've done separate shows. They've each done like 2 or 3 shows for me, but tonight, got them both here. So, Mom, Dad, welcome to the show.
Hi. Here in living color.
Let me say this, Rook. Thanks so much for inviting your mom and myself on. Because it's been, I miss it.
Okay, well, you're back. They've been asking for both of you. So, the 2 correspondents of Rook's Castle are here now, so you're going to get a good show tonight. I'm going to talk about them first. I'm going to try to, so that you know what type of family background I come from and get a little more insight of the people that you're listening to tonight. The first show, we're going to talk about them. And second show, we're going to talk about topics, issues, because there's a lot of information. As I said a lot of times, I don't really talk to a lot of people. I'm going to confess, most of the information I get, I usually talk about it with them before I talk about it. Sometimes they say, well, certain things maybe you don't want to talk about. Certain things maybe you need to do a little more research on. And my dad is always getting on me about having my stuff organized. So I got it a little bit tight tonight. But we're going to get into the show. That was a long intro, but we're going to just flow. And my dad kept saying, oh, what you going to talk to me about, boy? This is unrehearsed. We didn't talk about anything. This is the same thing we would be talking about in the house. So we coming into your 100,000 homes tonight, my mom and my dad. You see where I get my fashion statement from. So we're going to talk tonight. Part 1 will be about them. Part 2, we'll talk about issues and talk about, we're going to do the report card. We haven't given out the grades yet, but we'll go through different departments. But I just want to talk about them for the first hour. Second hour, flip around, talk about some different things about Mildred Crump with security. We'll touch on the Sharp James case. We'll talk about the tainted beef in the schools. We'll talk about everything that goes on in Newark, and we'll talk about the presidential debate. So, as I said, I've been talking for a few minutes. You got time to call people, let them know Channel 19, Rook's Castle, special edition, the Johnson family tonight. So let's start talking. Well, where do we start?
Where are you going to start?
We start with talking about growing up. You guys both came from the what they now call the Central Ward, but the Third Ward. So let's talk about. Let's first talk about, because everybody's like, wow, he finally got them on. Let's start talking about, how did the 2 of you meet? That's a good way to start. She's laughing.
I don't know if your mother wants to start or you want me to start.
Either one, we got a whole hour. I don't have nothing to do tonight. This is your show tonight.
Let me start.
Okay.
I didn't know your mother,
Okay.
and she happened to see my picture in the junior high school book,
Wow.
and asked her friend, "Who did she know me?" And she said no. So I was always a playground guy and athletic and whatnot. And one day she came, was it Belmar?
No, here's what really happened. Some of the things he has a little, they're not in chronological order.
Okay.
But he is right. I did see his photograph in his yearbook.
You like what you saw?
Oh, yeah. And you know, I've always been a go-getter. And whatever I see that I want, I go for it.
Oh, she got it 51 years.
So at any rate, I asked my girlfriend, and she said she didn't know him. So I said, okay. So then I kept, you know, asking around and whatnot. And I lived on Magnolia Street, which now Home Depot has taken up that property.
Wow.
And he lived down on Boyd Street across from the swimming pool. So people didn't really hang out then, but it was this hot dog store on the corner of Waverly Avenue, which is now Muhammad Ali, and Bergen Street. And it was called Sam's, and you could buy an Italian hot dog for 25 cents.
Wow.
And a double was 50 cents. And I think, what is it now, about $4 or $5? So anyway, we would go there, and they had like a jukebox, and you'd listen to the music or whatever. So it was a guy there, and his name was Boyd, Jimmy Boyd. And they were going to have this back-to-school party, and he told me that he was going to make sure he would be at this party.
Wow.
But our family would go to Belmar every summer, and so I've been at Belmar, but I was trying to get back in time for this party. So I got to the party, but I had to be home by 10 o'clock.
Wow.
And as I was leaving, he didn't show up at the particular time, and I was on my way out. And I knew who he was, but he didn't know who I was. And he brought this guy by the name of John Jones who could sing. John Jones had a baby face, but he had, his voice was like Eddie Kendricks or something like that.
Yes, right.
And so I came back, and the guy made the introductions, but I had to leave. So he walked me home, and John Jones was in the back singing all the way from the party up to Magnolia Street. And so that was how we initially met at the party.
Wow. Okay.
There's a point.
So if we've been married 51 years, then you can imagine how long ago that was.
Wow.
Let me say this, Rook. When I first really met her face, the part she talked about, but she skipped the part too. When I first really met her, she came to the Court Street Y. And she said, "My name is Delores Edwards." And I'm sweaty, wearing and whatnot. And this is why I wanted to say about when she came, her hair wasn't done, but look at it now, it's beautiful. But when I first saw her, she had been on the beach, and she just come back from vacation. So I looked at her, I said, "Who's this ugly girl?" I call her ugly. Now I hope she don't divorce me, because I want to keep what I got.
Okay.
But I looked at her, and I said, "Who's this? Who's this girl?" She, you know how she is articulate. And she started talking to me. And I'm looking at her, I'm still trying to find out why you picked me out. So now I look, but the more she talked, the better I felt, more comfortable I felt talking to her.
Okay.
And ever since then, we've been together.
Wow.
Ever since then, because she talked me into it.
I was 15, so at the time we were both 15.
I was 15.
But I wanted to say, I used to, when I would go, I loved the water, always did, and when I came back from Belmar, I had it in braids, but I had wrapped the braids around because I had long hair.
That's
so
right.
I had the sailor cap on. But school was going to start the next week, so I had to go to the hair salon.
Get it done.
And I had to get my bangs cut, because at that time, if you had long hair, you wore a Chinese cut bang with the page boy. And they would curl your hair, then they would put those coconut curls, and they would wave it all the way down, and then it would just hang down. So I made sure I got to the Court Street Y while he was there. And I stood up on the balcony, and he was getting ready to make this jump shot, and I called him. And he looked, and he was like, same girl. Same
Did
girl.
he make the shot?
No, he didn't make the shot.
I didn't make a shot the rest of the
You
night.
say you don't miss.
I didn't before I met her.
He missed. He missed. Trust me.
Wow.
But anyway,
We've been together ever
that
since.
was
Wow.
that was how we met. And you know, even though he went to Southside, he's the Bulldog, and I went to Central, the Lady on the Hill. But we managed to, you know.
Wow. So, okay. True story. If you just tuned in, I want you to hear this. They actually giving me stuff for my book, because some of this stuff I didn't hear before. But I'm actually going to be recording it. We're recording it. So let me get this straight, and so they can get this straight, because this is interesting. So you went to Central, but you cheering for him, playing for Southside.
He had his sister had given him a
Sweater?
sweater, and he ran track, played basketball, and played football. So he was a three-letter man.
Wow.
So he had the double S, and he gave me the sweater.
Oh.
And then he had, at the Essex County basketball tournament, they had won a gold basketball and had it was gold and it had a black S on it. And when Southside played Central, I would come to school with this sweater on.
Wow. You wore it to school.
Wore it to school.
Wow.
And walk in the cafeteria with this sweater on. And I mean, my friends would be furious with me. And they would give me the cold shoulder.
Wow.
And then I would, okay, if it was a home game, of course, Central was home. And then at the away game, then I would get an opportunity to go over to South Side, and I would have the sweater on.
Wow.
A lot of nerve, huh?
Yeah. But now he told a story on well, not a story. He told us something when I had the Bulldogs of Legend show on. You just tuned in. I'm talking to my mom and my dad. This is their anniversary show. Happy anniversary, Mom and Dad. But we're just telling you something that you probably won't ever hear this on any other show, or you probably might not hear this in anywhere across the country. This is the true family story of how two people have been together for more than 50 years, married more than 50. That's not counting how long they actually been together. So I'm actually so proud. So this is really close to my heart, because this is my mom and dad, and they raised me, done everything for me, and I'm just so proud that I can sit here and have them on the show and let you hear how a true, real Newark family survived here. And we're going to talk about we're going to get to the ride. Trust me, we got 2 hours, so I'm not going to miss anything. But he told a story on the Bulldogs of Legend show, and I had Autry Reynolds and those guys on here, about you holding a flashlight for him, Cleo Hill, and Ed Murphy.
Ed Murphy.
So now, talk about that, because I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think you can get your girlfriend to do that nowadays. You might lose her, yes. But how did you become the flashlight holder at, what is this, at Cleveland? I mean, explain that to us, because he mentioned that most people say your mother was holding a flashlight for your father to shoot baskets.
Coming down everything down.
Explain that to us, because that's going to lead into my next thing.
Well, a lot of times he would have practice. And so I would see him on the way home. See, if you went to we went to Central, so we would, nobody caught the bus because you didn't have money to catch the bus.
What if you live along with?
You walked. But it was fun because you saw everybody. You got an opportunity to see everybody.
Wow.
So the people that went to Central, I had some friends that lived on Fairview, so I would come down 18th Avenue. You know, Magnolia Street is on a block up from Bergen. Then I would come down to Fairview, meet my friends. We continue down 18th Avenue, and you go through Prince Street, all the way out to Springfield Avenue, down Springfield Avenue, across High Street, which is now Martin Luther King. Take that same route coming home. But on the way home, when we came through Prince and Spruce, then we would meet up with the Southside people who came through Prince, and then we'd meet. And of course, if you had any money, you could get a terrible or double cheeseburger. And those of the audience that's listening who are in our age group understandably know what that is.
Wow.
And they had a place called the Milk Bar on Spruce and Prince, and that's where everybody congregated. So if you go up a couple more blocks, you cross Belmont Avenue, which is now Irving Turner Boulevard, and you go up 2 blocks, you come to 18th Avenue Elementary School. That was his elementary school where he and Cleo and Easy Ed Murphy, bless his soul, is no longer with us. They would shoot fouls and whatever have you. So at night, if they went to, somehow or other, we'd always hook up. And this particular night, they didn't have lights in the playground, so they had a flashlight. So I was holding the flashlight while they made their set shots and their jump shots. Now, I didn't know anything about basketball when I met him, but you can believe I knew the game like I know it right now, backwards, forwards, and I would be the only girl with all of them to the game, and then I even started to play myself with the Court Street Y.
Wow. Okay.
So, but I wasn't really that great, but he always said I was the hatchet person, would beat up on the people coming down the lane.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's giving you trying to give it to you so that when we do the next hour we'll talk about some other things, but just laying the groundwork for you. Talk about the projects, how you survived it, and most people, unless they're native Norkers or they've been here for a while, they don't understand how close people were in the projects, and they also don't understand the fact that the projects were different then, and we don't have the high rises here, but we still have the project mentality, or we still have poverty here in a city like Newark. So I wanted you to talk about the projects and talk about the closeness of people in the projects now, as opposed to the street killings and the violence that we're dealing with now. Projects, explain to people that when they hear projects, explain to them how you survived, the closeness of people that lived in your floor, and tell us like a couple of stories of what you went through to survive the project before you moved into a different section of Newark.
First of all, Rook, I'd like to add, before we moved into the projects, your mother and I had planned to get married.
Okay.
Okay? And my mother wouldn't sign.
Okay.
So I said, no, Miss Sands told her, don't let that boy go down to school. I was getting ready to go to college. And all them pretty girls down there, don't let him go down there. So she said to me, so you're not going to school? I said, what you talking about? Yes, I am. She said, no, not yet. I don't think I had that in order. I think I put that ahead of. But I sent for her to come down to North Carolina.
Okay, okay.
Let's
talk about that, and then we'll get back to the project.
That's where when we got married, that was the best day of my life. Because she's still with me.
Say that again?
That was the best day of my life.
Wow.
Because she's still with me.
Okay.
Yesterday was 51.
That's right.
Okay, so now my mother wouldn't sign for me to get married because she thought I was too young. So your mother was willing to go south with me.
Wow.
What town did we get married in, Mom?
In High Point, North Carolina.
Yeah, I know that.
And,
okay.
Oh, because you played there. But
So, all right, so the people that are following this, because I'm giving them the whole
Yeah,
thing.
I skipped over.
No, that's okay. It's okay. They catching it. Most of them know you anyway. So you saying you went to North Carolina, and now you have your wife down there while you in school. So how did you two get through that though?
Well,
how do you
my
survive
coach,
that though?
Big House Gaines, I call him Coach Gaines. He took a very nice opinion of your mother.
So she had won him over then.
Yes, she did. Like she won me.
Okay.
she can do that.
Okay.
So he got her a job at Western Electric.
yeah.
And your mother, while I was going to school, was supporting me.
Okay.
And during the summer, when school was over, we stayed down south at Winston-Salem. And I would work whatever I could do. But your mother always worked at Western Electric.
I worked at West Electric.
And I think the first couple of days she was there, we missed a couple of meals.
Well, because I wasn't working, I had.
Yeah.
We had gotten married, and then he came. Then he stayed. Then I came back. And then I moved there, and we had this huge party before we left. You know, all our friends. And I had never been south in my life, and it was. And
So you hadn't seen this place before you
had
went?
never been in my life until he
Following the
called
Lord.
me to come, and then I went, and I stayed for a while. Then I came back, but I met some really, really wonderful people. And then when I decided that I was going to stay, and then I moved. Oh, we had one suitcase with the ropes around it, and we caught the Greyhound bus. Never forget it.
Wow.
And my mother, Nana, had a fit. She cried and she cried, and so I had Michelle then, and so Michelle stayed here until we were going to get this apartment. And I mean, it was something. Had never been exposed to racism, Jim Crow. That's when I faced it when I got there. I mean, to sit in the back of the bus, where you worked at, the signs. I mean, and I was working at Western Electric, and they were doing government work, so they had to hire so many blacks. But the bathroom in the office was clearly colored and white.
That's right.
And I mean, it was just, and the thing that Don Bradley was there at the time, and they had the sit-ins at Woolworths, and to me, I was a part of that with him. You know, we would go, and he would always say, "Oh, you're going to get arrested down here." And then I know one time we were in Raleigh, I think, and they had the colored and white water fountain. And I said, I'm going to drink out of this fountain because I want to know what's the difference. What is the difference in the water? It tasted the same, it was the same, and I didn't get arrested. The main thing that when I was there, they had this Western Electric contest. And the contest was going to be held at the Robert E. Lee Hotel. And you know, in 1957 and 58, if you went into the Robert E. Lee, you were a chambermaid. You were not a guest there. So you know there was no way that I was going to be allowed into the hotel and be a contestant. And now all you had to do was say your name and what department you worked in and what your responsibilities were. And that's how they graded the contestants. And your attire, what you wore. And you know, Nana used to sew and everything, and so she made a lot of my things, and some things I was able to purchase. And this outfit that I wore that day, she had made for me. And I brought it to work, and you had to, the way the shop was made, it was all the office buildings, and then you walk through this hallway, and then you go out into the shop. I mean, it was a huge place. And they did take my picture and put it in the paper called the Winoco. That was the West Electric paper. So that's how, I was the only black person.
Wow.
No black at that time now. I'm going back to 1958. No blacks. And they did put this little person's picture in the paper. So that's how everybody got to know who is Delores Johnson. And I told them, I said, when I leave from here, eventually a black will be named Miss Western Electric. But I did the groundwork way ahead of my time. And of course, when I went, nobody said anything to me. Everybody went on one side of the room, and I was over here. And of course, when I got up, you had to walk up and say your name. And like I said before, but from that day on, the people began to speak to me.
Wow.
And say good morning. But people in the South always said good morning to you. And that's what's so different here. Because when I first went, your father said, now people are going to speak to you. And make sure you speak. And I said, well, why are they going to speak? Because, you know, we don't do that here.
No.
You can get on the bus now and you could say, good morning. You can walk into your office and say, good morning.
People don't speak at work.
Hello. Well, that's where I learned the courtesies of the South. And when I left, I was pregnant with you. And they said no one ever had a shower that big. I mean, people from the different plants and, I mean, just gifts galore. And I mean, it was really something. And I met a lot of nice people. I'm still in contact with them. Last year we went to Winston-Salem. One of our friends was being inducted into the Coach Gaines Big House Hall of Fame. And I hadn't been back there in about 30-some years, because when you were there, I'd go. When Michelle was there, I would go. And then Darren, of course, broke the mold and went to FAMU. But the campus is so great. I mean, it was just different. I mean, everything is different, but it was really nice. And I had said to your father, I said, maybe we should retire down here. But then I'm glad I didn't.
Wow.
It's not, well, you know, it's nice, it's different, but
No place
if
like
you're
home,
not
G.
from the South, then you really, you know,
Yeah,
because while we were there that Sunday, I went to the front desk and I asked the clerk about the bus, and he said, well, ma'am, I'm sorry, the buses don't run on Sunday. So
Wow.
that just was really, you know, reminded me of the bus then. The bus didn't run on Sunday. And it's always just quiet and laid back, you know.
Wow.
But it was really, that was a good time, you know, meeting the people, knowing the people. And, you know, it was some people that I met, and we're still in touch. And she moved to Charlotte, and she became a principal. And she drove up because she knew that we were going to be there. And she came up to the hotel to see me. And, oh, we just had so much noise and tears and hugs in the lobby. It was good to see her, really good to see her.
Well, Rook, as you know, all being from Newark, we didn't know anyone there. I did have a few friends that attended Winston that were there. Okay, but what I want to say, this is the best thing that ever happened to me.
Okay, all right.
Because
Yeah.
she's been with me through thick and thin, through the wars, through whatever.
Yeah. You're a lucky guy. A lot
lucky
of
guy.
people can say that. So now, okay, you just tuned in. You're looking at Rook's Castle. This is a special edition tonight. It's my mom and dad's anniversary, so I wanted to dedicate the shows tonight to them, to let you hear. We leading up to something, so you have to watch this part 1 and 2. We're gonna really be getting into issues about Newark, because my mom and dad were here, as you can see. But I'm setting you up to let you see the whole thing. Now I'm gonna start getting into the meat of it. Now, you talk about you had 3 children that went to college. So hopefully we'll get, if I don't get that in, we'll save that for the next show. But
Okay.
I want to talk about parenting, because one time you were on the show and one time Mom was on the show, and we were talking about the problems with parenting, and you said something that people are still talking about. A lot of people don't know how to be a parent. So what I'm leading to now is, how did the two of you learn how to be a parent? You mentioned the fact that you both were down in Winston-Salem. You had Shell, then you had me. But going to school back and forth, being down there, having Mom come back and forth, how did the two of you learn how to become parents? And I'm hoping a lot of young people are watching this because they could learn something. But before I get into your work history and things like that, how did you learn how to become parents? Because even going back then, I know it had to be hard. People didn't have the resources that they have now to be parents and to raise kids, but it had to be hard then. So how did you do it?
I'd like to say this, look, answering that question. I didn't know how to be a parent.
Yeah, you said that on TV. That's why it's coming back up.
Here's the parent.
But how did she learn? I'm going to let her talk, but say that. But
Because we worked together.
And I would call my mother, bless her soul, Mom, Mother, I'll never forget, I couldn't cook when I first started out. I could
you know, he's waiting for you to say
I
that.
could not cook. And
Divorce.
I was
on
trying
the
to make
porch.
a fricassee chicken, and the chicken never got, it wasn't done. So I called my mother, and I said, Mom, I said, and you guys were screaming.
Hungry.
And I said, it's this beautiful chicken, and it's all white and fat. She said, oh, that's the fricassee chicken. I said, oh, who? What does that mean? And here it was going on 7 o'clock, and I'm still trying to fry the thing with the blood running out.
oh, wow.
You have to stew this thing. You got to brown it, and then you put. I had to go to Mr. Zuckerman, who we were in the projects then. And Mr. Zuckerman had the little family store on the corner, 17th and Fairview, and get the bologna and give you guys bologna sandwich and some soup. But the fricassee was ready the next day. But you learn, that's something you learn, because if animals know how to take care of their children better than a human being can take care of their kids. If you look at them,
Wow.
you know, and the only thing I if you have children, then you need to take care of them. They're not your mother's responsibility. They're not your grandmother's responsibility. They are your responsibility.
Wow.
If you brought them here, you should take care of them. And then when we were in North Carolina or wherever we were, you guys would go with us. And then I raised you. I wasn't out when you guys were little, because I was home with
that's
you.
interesting. Yeah. Well, I mean, I knew that, but I'm just thinking what you're telling people now. That's why I said that.
And you know, I would call my mom sometime and I would say, "Oh, Mom," she says, "Oh, I'm not going to be here today. I'm not going to be home tonight." And you know, I would get angry with my mother. But after a while, then I understood. If you have your children, then that's what you do. And we would play games. Remember, we had chutes and ladders. We had Monopoly, Candyland.
Yeah.
Whatever game, whatever toy it was, you guys had it.
You know what?
But,
Go ahead.
and you had to. Where are you going? I'm going to. You have to be home at whatever time it was. You guys always came home when you were supposed to. I remember Zeke's mother. Zeke could spend the night. Now you guys couldn't spend the night, but some people come. It depends on who. Zeke, his mother would call and say, "Is he there?" I would say, "Yes, he is." She said, "D, I'm coming to pay us. I want to make sure he's there." She would come in. You and Zeke would be in the bed. She said, "I'll see you later, D." And you know, you knew where your children were, and you weren't roaming all the way down Bergen Street or this street. You stayed. You were at, "Mom, I'm going to the playground." "Okay." "Mom or Mother, can I?" "Yes, you may." "And you better be where you say you're going." You know, where's such and such? "Oh, they went to," and then after a while you hear them come in, and you were in.
Right on time.
And you had to, because you had the key. We both worked. You come home from school, because you went to Maple Avenue School. You come home from school, you change your clothes, you sit down, do your homework. You don't turn the TV on, then you call me. "Mom, I'm home." You call me again. "Mom, I finished my homework. Can I go to the playground?" "Yes, you may." But you know, during that particular time, people weren't as violent and doing things like they are now.
Wow.
You know, if I had to raise a youngster now, I don't think I would work. I mean, people have to work. There's things that you have to do to survive. I would be afraid, because you don't know who's lurking in the hallway, who's following your child home, or if you're an adult, who's following you home. There's so many dangers out there, and I'm sure dangers were out there then. But you know, people looked out for people.
Wow.
You know, on Vassar Avenue, Mr. Odom, even though he lived up the street, Mr. Odom was the father of the block. People looked out for each other now. We don't do that. You know, on our block, we have our block association. And I'm the president. I'm forever saying, you know, leave your lights on. You know, we leave our lights on. Everybody in the block, you leave your light on. Look out for your neighbor. If you see something going on, call the police. You know, and we've had things to happen on the block, and people have called. Even our neighbor was nice enough to call us one night. Somebody was trying to break in the car, and it's like 2:15 in the morning.
Yeah.
But, and you know, that's what you want your neighbor to do for you. But,
Wow.
and I know it's hard now when people are bringing up their children. That's a job that I have to take my hats off to people that are doing it, because it's really hard.
Well, you know, hold up 1 second there.
Okay.
I'm going to let my dad say that. I just want to let you know, if you just tuned in, stick with us. We're probably almost near the middle of the show, but this is part one of the Johnson family. This is their anniversary, so I thought it would only be right for me to bring them on, them both here to talk about. And a lot of things that they're talking about, I know affect the community. The way we're going to do the show tonight, whatever we don't get on in the first show, because there's a lot of things I wanted to hit on, such as what my mom said. Because a lot of times you hear me say it, and my mom just verified it. Nowadays, you see people sick in their 60s and 70s that can barely walk down the street, taking care of their grandkids, probably because they feel like my mom did. They had a son or a daughter who wasn't doing good, gave up, might have got strung out, may have had some personal problems, may have gotten sick, or you don't know what happened. But a lot of times now, you don't see the big brother, the big sister, the aunt, the aunt or the uncle. You see the grandparents doing it. So I've always said, giving a special shout out to the grandparents. So I know a lot of you watch this show, and I just want to commend you to follow up on what my mom just said in terms of parenting, and that's why I brought that question up, because now you just don't have it. Nowadays you see with a lot of the young women, and on the next show I'll get my mom to expand on that a little more, but I think that a lot of people like my mom, not because it's my mom, but maybe somebody in your family that you know you can sit down and talk to, because I just think that the younger generation really, a lot of it is not their fault, but they're really lost, especially with the young women. They really know nothing about parenting. They take turns minding each other's kids. There's nothing wrong with that. But did you heard what my mom just said about she wouldn't work, or when my brother and my sister and I were born, that she stayed home with us. And some of you may not have the liberty to do that. But remember, times were hard then, so her and my dad sacrificed a lot to be able to raise us. So I just wanted to get that point across. So really kind of listen to what we're saying tonight, because you got to really catch what's going on. And she talked about how violent it is out here now, and things have changed, but we're showing you what actually all these administrations and politicians, ministers, they're trying to bring it back to that. That's one of the purposes of me opening up this forum and letting them talk, because instead of me saying it, I really don't know about that. You need to hear from them, because they've experienced it. They have a wealth of knowledge, and they're actually teaching me now while I'm listening to this.
Look, I like to say this, when you ask us how we learn to parent. I learned from my mother.
Okay.
Because she was always there for me and my brother. She would work, never without a job. She was stern. Okay? She was stern. And my mother was a twin. So she dressed my brother and myself as twins.
Okay.
But I always knew there was a love there. Because she made sure we walked the chalk line. We had to obey and do what she said do. You know what I'm saying? Your grandmother.
Yeah.
Okay.
Special shout out to all my grandparents. I'm hoping that they're looking down on me. Had good grandparents, my mom's parents and my dad. So just thanking them for laying the foundation with my parents, and hopefully they looking down and proud of what they see, because I was lucky enough to get a chance to know all four of my grandparents, and I think back to the Christmases, Easters, grandfather, grandmother. I could still hear my mom's mother's voice and my father's mother's voice telling me to do things as a kid, and I'm really saying now that wow, I know some kids wish they had what I had. Grandmother telling you they used to mind us, and I mean, just now as they talking, a lot of it's coming back to me. But I'm just so proud, and I know they can't hear me, but somewhere along the line, I know they looking down saying, "That's my boy," and I love them for giving me the love that I had, even if I was too young to understand it then.
Yeah, I remember. I see in the morning. I get up at 5 o'clock. I'm retired. My body still says get up at 5 o'clock. I get up at 5 o'clock, make the coffee, turn on the TV, go to the computer. And then when day breaks, and then around 6 o'clock, every now and then you'll see a young mother with a stroller going down the street to the bus stop. Brings back a lot of memories.
Yeah.
Because I remember I had you by the hand, or you might have been in my arm, and I had Michelle by the hand, and we were living in the projects, and I would be on my way to work.
Wow.
And I would have to walk up. There was a bus called the Three Bergen. It must have been 2 buses on the line. And if you missed the Three Bergen, you could forget it. And I would catch that Three Bergen on the corner of 100th Street and Bergen Street, a block in from Springfield Avenue. And you guys were little, so you couldn't walk. When the bus went by, guess what? I'd go back home. I wasn't working today. And he would say, "Oh, you know?" I said, "No, I did not."
Speaking of working, let's get into that now. We laying a lot of groundwork for you watching Rook's Castle, the #1 show here in the city of Newark. This is my anniversary show for my mom and my dad, dedicating these 2 shows this evening to them. You hear me talk about them, so I'm letting you hearing them firsthand yourself. Each and every one of you watching the show, we like to thank you for watching, but hopefully everyone will get something out of this show tonight. But let's talk about jobs. You had both of you, as long as I've always, only thing I ever knew both of you would ever do was work, and I thank you and love you for that. But what I'm leading into is that you just don't, now people don't want to work. Most of the immigrants come over here and they're doing all the work, but I'm not going to get on that. Talk about the jobs that you had. You worked a lot of jobs before you became the executive secretary for Mayor Kim Gibson for 16 years. A lot of people who are watching this now. A lot of police captains, lieutenants, retired sergeants. I remember everybody had to go through you to get to King Gibson, and you used to lead people to jobs, promotions. You helped everybody. I mean, even bad people you helped. So, I mean, going back from, what was it, Team, Model Cities, and some of the jobs that you had before you came and were handpicked to come in there with King Gibson. Dad, you've always been a teacher, but you always worked 2 jobs, would teach all day, go work a recreation job, and it's just, I'm just putting that out there to let you know how hard my family worked, to get where they are and to provide for their family, something that we really don't see. Like last night for your anniversary, we all sat down and ate together. Families just don't do that anymore. But I want to talk about work history because y'all have always been sticklers for work. I made a joke one time on my show because they said, "Oh man, your mother and father rich, they gave you everything." But remember, like I told you, my father said, if you want that stuff, I mean, I was getting sneakers and everything. I was getting everything I wanted. But as I got older, my father said, you're going to get you a job. Newspaper, I delivered newspapers. I cut meat and steak and tape.
Don't
and I had
forget
a
the shoes.
job.
Maybe you shine the shoes. Maybe you
I mean,
shoe shine box.
So I'm just letting you know that those are some of the things that you don't see now. But I'm not going to blame that on young people. They just don't know any better. They don't have the guidance at home. The average person that's even watching this now is being raised in a single parent home. A lot of your moms are struggling. Some of you don't know your dad. Some of your dads are not dead. For personal things, your parents split up. But what happened in the black community is that the family is gone. It's the black family and the closeness and camaraderie is not there. But I wanted to talk about the jobs and the pride that you all took. I've never seen y'all really take off from work. But I wanted you to talk about work history and give young people or old people, anybody that's watching this, just kind of like a background on the pride you took in having a job, what you taught myself, my brother Darren, my sister Michelle, because we watched you and that's how we figured out, well, I got to go to school. I have to be about something. You always had us going to me. I remember you took us to the World's Fair. He had us going. So I never really had free time because I was always doing something positive. Even if I didn't know what it was about, it was something different, whether it was cultural. I was an athlete, but I was always involved in something, so I really didn't have a lot of time to get caught up in stuff in the street.
You have to stay busy because the devil's playground is a mind that's idle and it's not busy. But I wanted to say this. In order to know the value of $1, you have to work, because that was the reason why we wanted you to know money and what it was about. And you have your job, and then when you had your money, now it wasn't anything you had to pay rent, nothing. You had your own money, and then when you got paid at the end of the week, then you knew that if you wanted to buy something for yourself or whatever, you knew how to spend it wisely, but then you were also supposed to save a certain percentage.
That's funny.
I mean, but you still had your money that we gave you. Now, I had a job when I was 16 years old, and I always liked nice things. I worked in a place called the Project Cleaners.
Wow.
My father was the manager of a Project Cleaners on the old Belmont Avenue.
That's right.
And he was the presser and a spotter. Anyone who's familiar with the cleaning business knows what a presser or a spotter is. And I was the counter person. And I was making, what did we make an hour? What was it, $1? Whatever this thing, $40. Anyway, it was $40 a week.
You never gave me any.
And he had a job too, and he was working at a restaurant, a busboy, washing dishes. I mean, just to show you people, if he wanted to take me out on a date, he had to have some money to get on the bus or to the movies or whatever, but he would come and meet me at the Cleaners. I'm supposed to get off at 6 o'clock. The Cleaners would be packed with all these people, 50 people in the Cleaners trying to get their clothes to go out on Saturday night. And I would try to leave, and my father would say, well, what, you got to stay. And I would say, well, I don't want to stay. And he would say, well, do you want to make money or do you want to spend money? And I would say, well, I want to spend it. But I was happy when I left out of that cleaners. I had my $40, and now this $40 lasted the week. That was a lot of money. I could buy what I wanted, lunch money or whatever.
She never bought me anything.
I wasn't supposed to. I wasn't supposed
No, you
to.
weren't married then.
I mean, you know, but it's always a responsibility. You had a responsibility to keep your room clean, and you always had pets. Take care of your pets. Remember when you had the you were working 2 jobs, working Speedy, and you was cooking the steak and take on Hawthorne and Clinton Place,
The Muslim.
and he didn't pay you.
Oh, wow.
And you came home about 12 o'clock at night. You came home and you said he didn't pay. Didn't your father go with you right back up there about 12:30 at night? Guess what? You got paid, right?
Yeah,
And
you
then
know, it's good.
You got paid, right?
What's funny about that story is that, I mean, you know, the guy didn't understand. He really didn't know who my family was. And back then, most of you probably watching this now, the Johnson brothers had a reputation, good reputation, but you didn't bother with them or their families. And he didn't understand. And at that time, this guy was a Muslim guy, and, you know, he didn't know who my family was. And then my Uncle Freddie had a reputation here in the city, and he was also a Muslim. So when he found out who my family was, I didn't have any problem getting my money. But it just goes to show you, just imagine if I didn't know anyone or my family didn't have a reputation for being stern and having a strong backbone, I probably would not have gotten my money. And the bottom line on that story was that I will never forget my mom saying, I was so happy to get the money, I couldn't wait to go back to work that day. But to this day, I remember what my mother told me. She told me, after you get that money, don't you ever go back there again. And I never went back.
That's right.
Rook, I admitted one thing when we was talking about parenting. I told you about my mother, how she was strict.
Okay.
She stayed on my brother and myself. But how I really learned to be a parent after your mother had Michelle.
Okay.
And I'm gotta give her a kiss.
Okay, this is next TV. Okay.
That's how I had to learn.
Live.
That's how I had to
In
learn
living color, don't
Okay.
forget
to
that.
be a parent. Because I had to be the father. She was the mother. She was the boss. I thought I was the boss, but she had to lead under the reins.
You had, I wanted to say something. You had asked me about the projects.
Yeah.
When we came home from North Carolina in 1960, and we ended up moving into Hayes Homes, and we had an apartment on the 12th floor, and I like to say it was a penthouse apartment.
Okay.
And at that time, it was just the 4 of us. You, Michelle, you were 6 months old. And I commented when I walked into the studio tonight, the floor was shining, so it reminded me of the hallway when we lived in 73. Each family, every week, it was your turn to scrub the hallway, and that hallway was clean.
Wow.
That was
And we would clean, yes, and the people would clean the elevators. And you know, they would blame things on the children, but the children didn't do that. That was grown people that did things in there. But I would like to say it was 2 ladies that I met. I didn't bother anybody in there, but they all knew me because we would have parties all the time, you know. And it was Gladys and Francis. And to this day, we moved there in 1960 and moved out in September 1962. And these 2 ladies are still my friends.
Wow.
Now, I don't see Gladys as much. Francis I see all the time. In fact, when we last year we celebrated our 50th, remember we had a big celebration.
Yeah, we get on that next.
And it was just so good, you know. We celebrated 25. Mom wasn't here, but I know she was there looking down. My grandmother, you know, Nanny was around, so she was there. But this time around for the 50th, it was something that I wanted, you know. This is something that I wanted to put on the gown. I wanted to and I did everything I wanted to do, and all of our friends were there. I mean, the girls that I went to high school with, and their hubbies, and the friends, you know, and our grands. I mean, a wonderful, wonderful night, you know. And the video was good, the food was good, the friends were good. And I said to them, I'll see you in 25 more. So, you know, that means when we do our 75th, the same people will be there. When I said that, I mean, they were just so, it was just a wonderful evening. But friendships like that come along once in a lifetime. And we are still friends.
Well, you know what?
Let me say this, Rook. I still have a lot of friends. A lot of friends have left me. But my best friend is your mom.
Okay.
She's still with me. And I'm still here with her.
You know what? Since we talk about that, before we talk about the anniversary party, because we probably on 3/4 of the show right now.
Okay.
I was gonna ask you this the other day, but with friends, right? What's the difference between now and then? Like, be honest with you, I don't have a lot of friends, not because I don't want them, because I know everybody and everybody knows me, but it's something about the era because people are not tight. Because I listen to y'all when you tell me, like, y'all always go to funerals a lot of times out of respect for people, but even like without the funerals, I mean, you always going to somebody's either birthday or something somebody's giving that you grew up with. I want to know from me, both of you, how did y'all stay that close? I'm asking you this because for the last 20 years, people in my generation, we don't have friends like that. I'm just wondering why.
Okay, let me answer your question, then your mom can give her opinion. One is when we were coming up, we loved each other.
People hate each other now.
Listen what I'm saying. We loved each other. We did things together. Your mother and I started going together at 15. We still for 51 years now in love. You understand? We loved each other. So if somebody passes, you go to show your respect. Not only to them, because they're not here anymore, but to their family. Because you also got to know their family. You got close. We were always close to this day.
I think,
yeah, go ahead.
I think that when you didn't have as much as you have, people have more things than they had years ago. And I think when you didn't have, you tend to share things. You tend to share more.
You're right.
You know, like years ago, we couldn't afford to pay somebody if we wanted to have a babysitter. So if Gladys or Francis, whatever, then all the kids, remember, everybody would go to one house. And then everybody would come to that house. But you shared.
Okay.
Now, people are just not that close. But I don't know. You know, she could say, hey, D, do you have a stick of butter or whatever, or some bread or whatever? You know, people just don't do that now. I mean, your neighbors aren't like that because, like I was saying, you know, when sometimes the people come home, they just go in the house and close the door. And I'm always saying that, too. You go in, you close the door like you live in the Short Hills or whatever have you. Hey, we're still in Newark. You know, even though it's a little better, it's a better neighborhood, you're still in Newark. But if somebody came and asked me for a stick of butter, I would, you know, because you know when I shop now. But I think that it's, and then you know now people seem to, it's egotistical, or either you're going to keep up with somebody else, or either you think maybe they may have more, or you have to be true to yourself. And there's some kindness. Kindness goes along with the friendship, and it comes from your heart. You know what I feel about my friends, it comes from my heart. You know, and you know we have this group now. We're called the Divas, and the Divas, we meet once a month on the last Friday of the month, and we have brunch or lunch or whatever it is the person chooses. You know, and it is really good to get together to see these people that, you know, we've gone to school with, and friends, or some of our children grew up together, and we're still friends.
That's what I'm saying, dude.
We are still friends. Now, I don't have to call you every day to be your friend, and you don't have to call me. But if you call me, you need me, I'm there for you. And hopefully they feel the same way about me.
Well, Rook, saying that, and I'm going to use our relationship. That's the way we are. For 51 years, we've been that way. We've always been there for each other. There's sometimes you get a little heated, you disagree.
A little heated.
But now, don't start now. When you talk about the anniversary party, if you just tuned in, you're looking at the #1 show here in the city of Newark, the state's largest city, Rook's Castle Roundtable Report. I'm your host and producer, Arthur Rookie Johnson. Proud to be here on the stage with my parents, my mom, Delores Johnson, and my dad, Arthur Johnson Jr. I'm the third. Let's talk about the anniversary party. I think maybe I'll put that on the show, or we'll show some clips of it next time.
Okay.
But now, when you look at that, when did it really hit you? When you had all your family there, all your friends, people you haven't seen for years, people that are coming up from out of town, from out of state, California, wherever. But when did it hit you? Because to be honest with you, most of your friends, if they were married, they're not together no more. They divorced, some deceased, whatever. But and I was there, but. Oh, that's the thing. Have we been talking that long?
Yeah. It's been good.
About the couple of minutes we got left, talk about that and how that made you feel after 50 years to still see the same friends and family standing there supporting you, and because I could see the gleam and glow in both your eyes when you came out.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
It was one of the best feelings. Other than the time I said I renewed my vows 3 times. The last time was the best time to me to see all of my friends there. Because first we were down south, then we had it here. But this time, your mother took charge of it. She made sure everyone we knew from abroad, from home, and whatnot was there. And it was so wonderful, man, just to see.
Wow.
The guy I played basketball with in college, he read us our vows.
It was fantastic.
I mean, it was just the feeling you couldn't forget.
Just when I walked into the room and saw all of our friends there, I mean, it's a feeling that
I did it again.
I couldn't. I mean, it was just a fantastic evening that I'll never ever forget. You know,
And guess what?
family and friends.
Guess what, bro? I tease her. I say, they asked me to speak to somebody. I say, yeah. The only thing is, I don't see my bank book.
Money well spent.
Wow.
Money well spent.
Yes, it was.
Money well
I
spent.
never regretted it.
How much time we got left, Rich? Wow. Okay, we're gonna wrap this up. Time flies. We're gonna
Thanks, Rick.
make sure
Thank
you tune
you.
in next week. I didn't get half of what I want. We're gonna really do another show. So next week you'll see the part 2. I'm gonna switch up, put on a different outfit, so I'll be able to know which tape is which.
You always do.
But I want to thank my mom and dad and say happy anniversary to them. Let them know that I love them. They've been behind me all my life. And a special shout out to everybody that's one of their friends, one of my friends, and everybody in our family. We thank you for watching the show. Next week we're gonna get into some issues, and I'm gonna do the regular show, but I'm gonna ask them questions. We're gonna talk about everything
we'll be here.
that's going on in the city of Newark, and we're gonna give out our city report card. For Mr. Richard Smith, I'm Arthur Rookie Johnson, RLS Media Sports for Arthur and Delores Johnson. 51 years anniversary. Happy anniversary, Mom and Dad. I love you.
Love you.
And we'll see you next week right here on Rook's Castle, the hottest show in Newark. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for part 2 next week. Thank you for watching. Good night.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah, great.